Good evening. My name is Jason Wallace. I'm the pastor of Christ Presbyterian Church here in the Salt Lake Valley, and we welcome you to another installment of the Ancient Paths. Our church that sponsors this program meets Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. at 8630 West, 2700 South. That's Main Street, Magna, and also at 5:30 p.m. We have a mission work in Logan that meets at 6:30 p.m. at 1315 East, 700 North, near the campus of Utah State University. And we also have a group that's in Logan that is, in Ogden, that has approached us with an interest in joining our denomination. And if you'd like more information about any of those, we invite you to go to our website or to give us a call. We are a church that tries to stress the importance of God's Word. We have simple, reverent worship, expository preaching. We try to promote family worship and building up the Christian home. If you'd like more information, as I said, you can go to the website, either www.christpres.net or the television show website, www.ancientpaths.tv. Well, one of the things that we've discussed in the past that I wanted to come back to, especially with all the political discussions that are taking place, is the role of Gnosticism as a counterfeit to Christianity. And we're going to be doing something a little bit different tonight. We're going to be talking about a more traditional topic in terms of the Jehovah's Witnesses, but I want to come back move from there rather to the political sphere, because I believe that we have seen a resurgence of Gnosticism within our culture, where people are trying to make the state into a god, and they're looking for deliverance not through Jesus Christ, but rather through political candidates and things like this. And we're very privileged to have with us this evening Kyle, the host of Kyle 2K on K-Talk Radio. Kyle, very good to have you with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason.
You had some discussion on your show yesterday that I thought was provocative. I mean, I thought you tied together some things that I really wanted to invite you on, and I really appreciate you coming on short notice. You talked about your growing up in the Jehovah's Witnesses and how they use fear to manipulate and control people, and how you saw parallels to that in many of the modern political emanations from the left. Let's start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself and growing up in the Jehovah's Witnesses.
You know, I was born into the religion and really believed that it was all I knew. So I had a passion that was, it didn't start out as a passion, but you know, if you want to know from the beginning, I was pretty reluctant all along as a little witness. I just was, I guess, you know, wanted to be a little kid. But when my parents were pretty severe Jehovah's Witnesses, I mean, when I was, I think, like I was about 3 years old or something, and my parents were pushing me to be a public speaker. And so they told me when I was like 3, they says, "Okay, Kyle," and I was like, you know, yeah, you know, you're going to get in front of this Kingdom Hall and you're going to give this talk, or we're going to beat you to a pulp, you know. So I didn't want to, you know, I fought and complained. I didn't want to get in front of the Kingdom Hall and give a talk. But the first time I went on stage, well, I mean, I wish I could say it was a bad experience. I did not, I wish I could say that I only wet my pants, but I was nervous. It was a horrible experience. And my parents made good on that promise of beating me to a pulp. So they beat me to a pulp after they got me off the stage and cleaned me up. And after that experience, I learned that it was easier to. I learned to like it. I didn't have a choice. So I became a little public speaker and knocked on doors, and that was just kind of the only. It was coercion all along, but.
And this was in California?
Yeah, I was raised in San Fernando Valley, Los Angeles, California, and I was a true believer. This is you don't know any better, so you can be brainwashed. And I grew up the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Wire Tribe Bible and Tract Society, is, in my opinion, the definition of a cult. They discourage higher education. They discourage any practical experience. When I was young, I wanted to have like back then, paper routes were big for kids to have, and I wanted a paper route, and they were like, you wouldn't allow me to do anything. And they actually want you to be as dysfunctional as possible in the real world. So I wasn't street smart, I was street stupid. And that's the way they like you. They like you dependent. And if you try to gain any expertise in the real world, that is looked on as like a sign of spiritual weakness. That's a lack of faith. So,
unless it's being a chiropractor.
Well, that's a good point. So, but I was a lifer. I was born into it, and I did. It wasn't in my heart, obviously, because I burned out on it when I was in my late teens, early 20s, but it was in my head, so I was truly brainwashed, and I did believe. I know that mindset of believing that you're inherently flawed, God cannot love you, and the world is ending, and I lived in fear. That was their main tool, I would say.
Now, I'm not good at judging people's ages. Were you active during the whole lead up to 1975 when they were expecting?
Yeah, absolutely. I am 54.
Oh, okay.
Just turned 54.
You had, I wouldn't have. I would have pegged you younger. So
yeah, no, I was born in 54, and so I was active by the time I graduated high school in 1972, and was at that time what we called a full-time pioneer, the equivalent of what the LDS refer to missionary. That's what I was, full-time pioneer.
Now, how were you supported as a full-time pioneer?
Well, most of the Jehovah's Witnesses, your parents would sponsor you, I guess, and some people were allowed to have little part-time jobs. I never was. I was always discouraged from doing that. As I said, my experience in the JWs was not your typical experience, I would say, because by the time I was, 10 or 11 years old, I was almost a full-time public speaker. My parents were carting me all over the country. Yankee Stadium, Soldier Field, Candlestick Park, all over. And so they were, that was kind of my job, pretty much as a recruiter. It is a dark religion. It is monetary-based religion. It quite profitable, and it does have a dark side. The Wire Tribe Bible and Tract Society does have a dark side, but it is one that, and I would encourage anybody to, the Jehovah's Witness who knocks on your door is an innocent. They're innocent. Most of them have no clue of what the core of the religion is about.
But the power that is there when the organization, which claims to be God's organization on earth, when I've been around some of them and I know some of the terminology. When you've got this group of people who basically are claiming to speak for God, it's little surprise that there's all kinds of corruption and evil that comes out of that. Because who are they answerable to? I mean, there's no accountability from them except to God.
And they maintain you're forbidden. I mean, to have contacts outside of the religion for the most part. So it is, and if you question any of the teachings, or you want to know, like if you're reading the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures, and I'm sure there have been other versions since I've left the religion, 20 years or so ago. But if you were to question, like, okay, here's a chapter, and then here's a verse, and then in the New World Translation, the next verse there would be like a dash. Like if you were to question, like, well, what happened to that verse? Anything like that at all was considered a sign that you were from the dark side.
Now you were a recruiter. What drew people into the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Well, you would knock you're looking for weakness. When you knock on someone's door uninvited to attack their belief system, and not as a witness, especially when you're using little children, you're manipulating people. And honestly, you're disrespecting people when you approach them right off the bat on that level. Okay, when you use little kids especially to do it.
We'll get into this in a moment, but okay. the parallels to secular liberalism just keep adding up. I mean, because everything that they're doing now is for the children.
Oh yeah, have you seen those Obama youth?
Yeah,
that are.
Oh, the song they had on YouTube scared me to death. I mean, it sounded like Chairman Mao.
Right.
But at any rate, we'll get. But you're looking for weakness. What would you see as a major draw to people to want to know more about the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Well, it is a mind control religion, and so you're looking for people in order to control people's minds. Mind control works. This is when you were listening to my show yesterday, I was cautioning people today to ignore people who are trying to tell you that you've got your priorities all wrong. People in their own lives know that they should be concerned about, and men, we should be concerned about the example we're setting for our wives and our sons and daughters. We should be thinking about the practical things, their school and their morals and so forth like that. People that want to control you want to come in, and the first thing to do is make you think about something you would never normally think about. That's the first goal in mind control. If I'm going to try to control your mind, Jason, then I've got to. I have to get you to think about something over here that you would normally never think about. Liberals use, as Jehovah's Witnesses, Armageddon's coming. Liberals use global warming or other catastrophes or whatever. And so you're looking for people who will buy into that. The ones who won't, you have they're not potentially good Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay. Well, just a little of the background. We actually did a show where we talked about William Miller and some of the aftermath of what he had done. He actually said Jesus was coming back first in 1843, then 1844, and you have two major movements come out of that. One is the Seventh-day Adventist, who said at first that they thought that was the last time anyone could be saved. They kept having kids and didn't seem to be a great way to win new people over. So they changed it and said that Jesus had come back invisibly. But then you had the Second Adventist, and they said, well, 1844 was the beginning of the last generation. And you had the first guy, I think Wendell was his name. He added 30 years to it and said 1874. He got a guy named Charles Taze Russell to join in when 1874 didn't have the second coming. Charles Taze Russell said, well, 30 years isn't really a generation, 70 years is.
Right.
So then you get, that...
Kept moving the goalposts.
Right. So then you get 1914, 1918, 1925, 1941.
And the earlier dates were just simply a test to weed out the weak.
Yeah. and then 1975 was the big date.
Right.
That was sort of it was like they dusted off all the old stuff, brought it back brand new, and it just didn't work out so well. But do you, as an outsider, it seems to me that Jehovah's Witnesses would view the second coming and just the whole religion in general, it doesn't seem to be very God-centered so much as it is that God is sort of out at arm's length and He set a certain program. And if you do, it seems very man-centered. If you do thus and so, then you get to go. You get to be in paradise on earth forever, since the 144,000 are already filled up. But if you don't do it, then you're going to get destroyed. And so it's not really a relationship with God so much as it is judgment's coming, and here's a plan. It's sort of an insurance plan almost, just the way it seems to an outsider. Is that I know it's a bit of a caricature, but is that closer? How would you say it?
It is one of the, I don't consider, having lived, being raised in it, I don't consider Jehovah's Witness, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society to be a Christian religion.
Oh, I understand.
I consider them to be a godless religion. You're afraid of God. In fact, I still got to be careful. We, when I was one of them, we talked more about Satan, the devil, and the dark side than we did about anything else.
Right.
And death was death. I mean, if you were dead, they didn't believe in immortality of the soul. And it was to make you afraid of death. So everything was fear-based. Even death was something that they wanted. The goal was to make you afraid of everything.
It seems that there's a great tendency, keeping God at arm's length, that you're not trying to promote a reconciliation with God so much as here's this plan you have to follow, and that actually promotes this inner core that you were talking about with this man centered authority.
Yeah, God is Jehovah God, or their Jehovah God, is a God that is always judging you. Their God is not a God that protects you and is there to give you comfort. You are more conscious of. Well, let me give you one example. One of the things that struck me after I had a chance to think about it for a long time was, as a child, as you are indoctrinated into going door to door and why we're doing this. The Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, has a book that children are taught from called From Paradise Lost to Paradise Returned. And it gives the story of the Garden of Eden. And we do, as children, Jehovah's Witnesses, we went from door to door. And the model that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society used was the success of Satan's approach to Eve to convince her to eat from the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. So Satan approached her directly and promised her that, this fruit will give you knowledge and power and so forth. And that was an effective and successful approach with Eve. And that was our model. That's what you're teaching little Jehovah's Witnesses. Our model was Satan, the devil's approach to Eve. I'll let everyone else fill it in from there. But if that's how you're teaching young Jehovah's Witnesses, this is the model we're going to follow because it worked with Eve.
Man. One of the common threads I've seen through a lot of cults, to me, it's all spiritually connected. But whether they're overtly religious or whether they're purportedly just political, one of the threads I've seen is that it's really hard to unite people around a common vision, but you can unite them around a common enemy. And
good point.
And it seems as if I think I stole it from either 1984 or Road to Serfdom, but but anyway, I don't claim to have a whole lot of original, but it seems as if the Jehovah's Witnesses really try to organize people not so much around a common vision. I mean, there's common authority, but they're defining themselves against everyone else. I mean, is that, and that's how they control people, is they keep demonizing the alternatives.
Yeah, and people as Americans or people as Christians, as children of God, need to be looking for unity. And God, we are all God's children. And you're exactly right. Anyone that wants to separate you from society, what are they afraid of? What are they afraid that you're going to be exposed to out there? Very much, it's us against them. And Jehovah's Witnesses, many cults are like that. You have the mentality that you're the center of the universe, and that everyone is paying attention to you, and that is, and it is easier to unite people against an enemy than it is sometimes for a cause. People of a certain mindset.
Now, this is sort of where you've been, but having come out of that, you saw some common threads with what you were seeing in the political realm around you, and some of the same groupthink and demonization and things like this. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, when I first left Jehovah's Witness, it was really not because I had an awakening. It was a realization that my heart was not in here. There's a certain, they can brainwash you, but there's a certain coding in your heart that is there to stay. I knew that wasn't where my heart was going, so but I just grew my hair long and bought a Harley and didn't care too much about politics or anything for a while. And I was still very much anti-American, which Jehovah's Witnesses hate America. We didn't salute the flag or stand for the national anthem. After a few years, I did start reading the newspaper really for the first time, because Jehovah's Witnesses are politically neutral. You don't keep up with things like the Proposition 8 issue or taxes or school choice, or those things that are just, we are politically neutral, we stay out of that. When I did start to pay attention to the news, though, I could immediately identify liberals, because you look at a newspaper and they're all very much the same. It was just like looking at the Watchtower and Awake. There's a certain mindset. I thought I was free of these people who wanted to control people's minds. And then I thought I'd left them behind as Jehovah's Witnesses, and I find out that liberals are the equivalent, very much the counterpart in the mainstream society. They focus on the negative. They got to plant these little seeds in your mind so they can micromanage your lives. So they focus on the negative and try to scare everybody. And just like Jehovah's Witnesses, and I see that as a godless mindset, number one, and it is one that people need to be aware of and resist. Anyone that's trying to scare you is trying to control you.
We would have a few disagreements. I mean, I think there's some things people do need to be scared of that they're not aware of.
Liberals.
Understood. I mean, if someone's smoking 2 packs a day, there have been some discoveries over the last 40 years that they might not be fully aware of. That if they were, they might.
Right. The obvious. Yeah. Sure.
But we're going to go ahead and we're going to flesh this out some more. But I want to go ahead and open up the phone lines. If you'd like to join in the conversation, the telephone number here is 973-TV20. That's 973-8820. And we're talking with Kyle of the Kyle 2K Show on AM 630 K-Talk Radio, and talking about his experiences with Jehovah's Witnesses, and also some common threads with what we see in much of the modern political environment. I'm having difficulty putting a sentence together tonight. Can't talk.
Well, you do it without. See, I have commercial breaks on my show, so I get a chance to kind of catch my breath and whatever. Here we just go straight through. So you're doing better than I used to.
Back when I did a community affairs program on the radio, I could tape it, and I could edit it up and take all the ums out and actually make myself sound a whole lot more intelligent than I really was.
That's the challenging part of radio too. You don't get a chance to do it over.
Well, and with radio, even when it's live, you don't get people holding up signs, your hair sticking up or something like that. So
this is a little bit. I thought this would be easier. Easier than radio, but this is there's a lot here. You have a lot to keep track of with the camera angles and things that we don't have.
Well, I'm curious. To me, I hear echoes of much of what I'm thinking as well from you, as far as the modern atheistic, progressive. I'm trying to think of all the proper terms, but basically the neo-socialist political movement that we see taking over so much around us, it seems to be not just politically convinced of certain things. There seems to be a religious fervor and a religious paradigm to it all.
Yeah, they're committed to these concepts because they need them to be true. So if I want to tell you what car to drive, that's where liberals have a problem, because they can't be true to themselves. They always have to at least pretend and even lie to themselves. They've got a perfectly good reason for telling you how you should live your life, Jason, and how you should raise your children and the priorities you should be teaching them. Among them is that global warming is in fact man-made, when you can ask these same people, okay, were there dinosaurs at one time on this planet? Was there an ice age at one time on this planet? Those are gone, and the dinosaurs and the ice age, those disappeared before man got here. So it seemed like this idea of weather, it was here before man was. The weather is not a man-made or manipulated phenomenon. We are heated. People need to use common sense. The sun heats the earth. Sometimes it burns a little hotter. Sometimes it burns a little cooler. And we'll have an ice age come and go that has nothing to do with the car you're driving. But we're talking about a new atheism has become a religion, and they need it to be true. The certainty that you talk about, they lock onto something. They want to create, let's say, victims. People who want to control people, they need victims. So they want you to believe, they will believe that there is racism is a huge problem in America. Well, let's see. The color of my skin. I didn't wake up this morning this color. I've been colored all my life. This is not a. There are a few racists in this country, but the racism.
And you're not scared sitting next to someone from South Georgia.
I'm actually. I feel like I don't feel like my life is in any danger at all. And but the liberals, it's funny. The liberals will try to convince me that this is a racist country. They are convinced of that fact, as you say, their certainty, because they need it to be true. They need global warming to be true, and they make fun of us for having faith in a higher power when they exercise and demonstrate much more faith when they believe in concepts like global warming, which has zero science to support it.
It seems as if we have gone from one crisis to another, to another, to another, because in the same way that you have to manipulate people in the Jehovah's Witnesses through, the second coming is coming now. 1975, it was the date. You've got to have something where, Ted Danson said, I think 10 years ago from now, we're going to be cooked. And
yeah, by Ted Danson, we weren't going to have any ocean life, I think, by 1992. If you look at even newspaper reports, there are reports, if you go back and look at, even from the 20s, that the seals seals in the polar ice caps. They do the same thing as Jehovah's Witnesses do. All the doomsday scenario disciples do that. They predict crisis, and as they do not occur, they simply move the goalposts.
It's, I don't think that it's devious with a large number, but it seems as if people have this need for something to give their life meaning and purpose, and they find this unity in attacking other people. Mm-hmm. When we read the Bible for what it actually says, the law should first and foremost be a mirror in which we look at ourselves. People love to use the Bible or some other standard to look at other people. Mm-hmm. And, like the Pharisees feel good about themselves by talking about how bad other people are. And it mm-hmm. seems as if we've shifted from things such as, not to lie, not to steal. Now the virtue is to drive a hybrid. And, it's thou shalt not drive an SUV, thou shalt mm-hmm. not hold on to thy own money, and thou shalt not educate thy own children. The president of the Atheists of Utah actually said that he agreed with Richard Dawkins that it should be considered by the state a form of child abuse to give religious instruction to children. Mm-hmm. It's like the old blasphemy mm-hmm. laws even. You would be considered a global warming denier and worthy of civil penalty by a lot of people.
Yeah, among the what I call the global warming or eco-Nazis, that's an open discussion, is that if you do not believe in man-made caused, human-caused global warming, then you should lose your certification as a meteorologist. So what we see is that I didn't understand this mindset entirely. I kept wondering, why are Christians under attack? Why are people who believe in, if you believe in anything, you are attacked? And I read a quote. It was by William Allen White, when I first read the quote, I thought, this is amazing. He said, liberty is the only thing you cannot have unless you're willing to give it to others. So the Constitution technically gives all of us freedom, but liberty is something you can't enjoy, personal freedom, your personal liberty. You have to be willing to give it and enjoy others' freedoms in order to personally have it. Liberals do not have that. People who don't believe in God do not have that, because rather than enjoying their freedom, they're concerned about what you're doing with yours.
I'd like to invite you to join in the conversation. The phone number here is 973-TV20, 973-8820. And, let me qualify here. I understand that there are probably some people who believe that there is scientific evidence for global warming. I disagree. But what we're talking about here are people who have this sort of religious conviction, who define themselves in this sort of neo-Gnostic kind of way, that they have embraced these things to define their lives, and it's become a religion with them, and they're manipulated and manipulate others in much the same way that Kyle has seen with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Mm-hmm. The fear. Let's flesh that out a little more. We talked about mm-hmm. global warming. What are some of the fears that you see being put out there to manipulate people against? In both cases, and even with the communists, the enemy are the Christians, because they're the ones that will not recognize the state as God. And if you have a messianic view of the mm-hmm. state, if you think that Obama is going to come in and save us from original sin, and mm-hmm. it doesn't work out so well, who are going to be your scapegoats? The ones who don't recognize the state as God.
The elitism. We talked a little bit before we got on the air about the belief that there is such a an attainable goal as human perfectibility. And people who believe in freedom, there's diversity right there. Liberals want to make you afraid that your choice, their goal is to have a state religion, and this, to them, they see this, their goal is one nation under gay, not one nation under God. So you look at every single one of these causes. I use if you look what happened to my black people, I'm half black and half white. Like Barack Obama, those are our only similarities. But I've always been intrigued with what happened to black people after they were made more than equal, this concept of affirmative action. And that is a godless concept. It is equality. We're all God's children, so we all have rights. And our founding fathers pointed out those rights are unalienable because they come from a creator. So if we question the existence of a creator, then maybe those rights really don't exist.
We have with us Jim from Salt Lake. Jim, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've been listening to your program. I just happened to tune in. I've been watching faithfully lately because you're very interesting. I guess what I was asking the lady or telling the lady was, why are you and your guest lumping all liberals as atheists because they're liberal? I happen to be a Christian. I also happen to be a liberal. And I don't find any contradiction between Holy Scripture and what some of the ideas of global warming, dinosaurs, and that sort of stuff.
If you'll hold the line for a second, I actually did qualify that we're not talking about people who may hold to a specific position, but that there are many people who hold those positions not out of a carefully examined rationale, but rather they're holding them in a more religious way, in a more Gnostic kind of way. And so, I can respectfully disagree with someone who holds to global warming or maybe holds to some other positions, but that I think may or may not be consistent. But the question I've got for you...
I agree that you could have that right to disagree with people who believe in global warming. But like your guest was saying, there isn't enough scientific evidence. I totally disagree with him. Most of the scientists in the world, and I'm not just talking American scientists, I'm talking about worldwide scientists, believe in global warming.
Well, you're factually wrong there. You're just misinformed.
Okay.
There are a tiny number of scientists that have been portrayed as, you could say you have thousands of scientists that sign a document. For every scientist that has signed those documents, you don't see the scientists that disagree, the thousands of scientists who disagree with their colleagues. There is no science to support the idea that CO2 or greenhouse gases are affecting our climate. Right now we're in a cooling trend, if you've noticed. And so, sure, you can find a number of scientists who believe the world is going to end and that they will sell out their own credibility and their own integrity to sign on to a cause like this because they need an excuse to control people's lives as well.
I don't see how that's controlling them if you're looking at trying to improve this planet. Whether you agree or disagree with global warming.
Jim, the people that claim to care about the planet are only concerned about the pollution that comes from the United States of America. These are the people, this global warming debate is affirmative action for countries. One standard for the United States, another standard for the people, China and India, who are causing most of the pollution in our atmosphere. You will find liberals, cricket-filled silence, complaining about the pollution of India and China. They're only concerned about the pollution that comes from the United States of America because this is where they want to control free enterprise and shut down our constitutional and our beliefs in God.
Okay. And again, I respectfully disagree with that concept because if you look at the
Jim, if you're
agreement that President Bush refused to sign and go with, that was signed by most of the countries of the world.
Because it left out the countries that were causing most of the pollution. A double standard, Jim. If they cared about global warming, if they cared about pollution, they would insist that the countries causing most of the pollution meet the same standards of the United States. They do not do that.
I agree that they should. But because they don't doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or that...
It means that they have a different agenda. They're using global warming as an excuse to institute a double standard. That's the liberal pattern. Affirmative action for countries. That's all they want is a double standard, and they use global warming as the excuse to do it.
Well, I guess I just, from your point of view, I guess I have to disagree. I mean, I believe in Scripture and I believe in the Bible, and I know my Lord and Savior is real.
Jim, let me
but
ask.
I also believe in global warming. I also believe that we need to start changing our attitude. If we start changing our attitude in the world, then we can come up to nations like China and India,
are you going to let
any other nation that is polluting the earth and say, okay,
Jim, I'll cut you off.
We're starting to do it. You make an effort.
Jim.
And that's the only way it's ever going to happen. We've got to take the first step.
Jim. Oh, well. It's supposed to be a conversation rather than a monologue. But, one of the things that I think is scary in all this is that we as Christians have forgotten what the Scriptures tell us and what history confirms about the fallenness of man. And when we give absolute power, it corrupts. Absolutely. Power corrupts. And when we accept on disputed evidence that man is creating these problems and therefore we should give to the government the right to control our thermostat, the right to say how many miles we can travel and things like this, we're creating problems for ourselves. The tyrants of history are what our forefathers came to this country to escape. And I think that we need to be very careful. I didn't get a chance. I wanted to ask Jim what his views were on the socialist agenda that has been embraced by many evangelicals, unfortunately. The Bible says, "Thou shalt not steal," and that includes the government. There are rightful taxes, but I don't know any other way than to see it as stealing for the government to take someone's money and give it to me or someone else as a means of wealth distribution and to buy votes.
This last caller was actually a great example, and I will point this out. When you look at the homosexual agenda, the environmentalist agenda, there are real environmentalists among us. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, the real environmentalists are the loggers and the ranchers and the farmers and the hunters and the people who really care about the environment. But if you look at the agenda of the environmental global warming disciples, the quote unquote civil rights activists, at the core of each one of these causes, you will find a double standard. Every single cause is floated as an excuse, as a reason to institute a double standard. Affirmative action had one standard for one group of people, another standard for other people. We're all children of God, we should be equal. The global warming debate, hey, if you want it, let's all clean up the environment, but not one standard for the United States and another standard for countries like China or India. The same thing with the homosexual agenda. We already have equal rights. No one is telling a homosexual man that he cannot get married and have children. No one's telling them that. But again, they want rights that don't exist. They want to say, well, I can't get married to my boyfriend. I can't marry a boy either.
Or extra wives.
Or extra wives.
If yours is anything like mine, you wouldn't live to see the second one. But we have Mary Ann from Salt Lake City. Mary Ann, good to have you with us.
Good evening to both you gentlemen. Today I came across a book at Deseret Bookstore written by Andrew Skinner that the deification of mankind is a perfectly Christian concept. Of course, Mormons and LDS have taught this for years. Is this also taught by Jehovah's Witnesses? And is it a Christian concept or not? And he even supports it with some Bible verses. Please comment on this.
The
Okay.
deification of mankind?
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me? I don't.
I'm sorry, she's off the line.
Okay.
But I think what she means by that men can become gods. That's not really a Jehovah's Witness doctrine so much. I mean, their whole view is that is on paradise here on earth.
We created in God's image. I don't know what her point was. I mean, I don't. I hope that everyone is trying. I don't pretend. I consider myself a Christian. I hope that in this life, I will graduate to I will do what's necessary to graduate to another level.
Yeah,
I don't expect to be graduate to deity status, I guess.
I think what she may have been touching on was some of the conversation about the perfectibility of man and things like this, and
that is the liberal concept of human perfectibility is the opposite. Spirituality should be something that empowers us, encourages us to reach higher, reach for our dreams. The idea of human perfectibility is one that is only possible if you reduce all of us to our lowest common denominator. So that is about holding people down. This is why the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Jehovah's Witnesses, they do not want you to even get a high school diploma. I was not allowed to get to complete high school. They want people, and if you look at, again, my black people, or you look at public schools, the priority is not knowledge, but it is ideology. You know, our public schools, the priority is not teaching children to read and teach them about history and teach them practical skills. It is indoctrination. It's more important that little, and there's a duality in the black inner city schools. Victimhood is taught. In predominantly white schools, it is white, what we call in the black conservative movement, white guilt, that is taught children. So white kids going to school, you can't make victims out of them, but you can try to convince them that everything would be fine except for white people. Slavery is blamed on white people. My ancestors were slaves in this country before America was America, so don't blame America for it. They want us to be convinced that this was just a wonderful, peaceful place, and the Indians were just smoking peace pipes, and everything was wonderful until the white man showed up, and then the bloodshed and disease and everything else. When the fact is that we enjoy a freedom here that has been paid for in the only currency that can purchase this freedom, which is blood, and most of that blood has come from white men.
One of the things that's striking to me is that all around you end up seeing this sort of fundamental denial of the fallenness of man. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you talked about some of the civil rights legislation, things like this. You know, we've gone from an illegitimacy rate in the black community of, I think it was 25-30%.
Yeah,
now
in 1940, Vince Supremowitz did a study on this. In 1940, 80% of us, black Americans, were literate.
And then
Could read.
Right, and the government steps in, and it's destroyed the black family. It's destroyed the literacy rate. It's destroyed all these different things, and I think not so much necessarily from a devious attempt as some conspiracy people would think, and I think maybe there were some people that way, but I think generally it's from a failure to recognize that we're sinners and that we will. If the state's going to give us money to do self-destructive things, like have children out of wedlock, we're going to do it. If the government will pay me not to work, there's going to be a great temptation for many people, and you end up with the cultural norms breaking down. You end up with all kinds of other things, and so the government just redoubles their efforts and ends up creating a bigger mess. And the whole public school system, as you were describing, I mean.
The family structure is crucial to society, and our family structures, black families, were for the most part every bit as intact as white families in the early 1900s. We had just as many two-parent mother and father homes as white people in the early part of the 19th century. We didn't have civil rights, but we weren't victims either, and the little children, what they did was they took the man out of the home, like you said, with the government programs. We will pay you, the mother, as long as there's not a man in the home, Uncle Sam will take care of you. And when you take the man out of the home, the child doesn't have a father. The young man, especially the young boy, doesn't have a father figure, a mentor, someone to tell him to do his homework and make him do the right thing. And we've seen what's happened to the black community. It is now these are the people who are supposed to have benefited from liberal ideas and affirmative action. These are the people with the highest rates of illiteracy, the highest rates of abortion, the highest crime rates, the highest suicide rates. When you just go look at them in any major city, go to the morgues, and you see young black males represented at a higher percentage than any other group. Go to the prisons, more of us are being incarcerated. So these are the people who are supposed to have benefited from these wise and compassionate liberal concepts, and it has exactly the opposite effect.
The liberal ideas towards the black community, towards crime in general. You remember Michael Dukakis and the furlough programs and all these things. I mean, there's a fundamental denial that God is God, we're not. That we're all of us are fallen, and that therefore, the forefathers of our nation set up limited government with checks and balances, so that it wouldn't be centralized in any individual, because they understood that power corrupted. This country was founded by the first group of men who wanted to recognize that we had God-given rights and we would respect those rights. And this is a country that needs to get back to its fundamental roots and stick to our traditional definition of marriage. Religion is under attack because liberals don't want anyone but them defining what's right or wrong. And people who, the godless, I call them secular theophobes, people who are afraid of God, don't want you answering to a higher power, and they don't want, to them, you try to pin them down on is there anything that's wrong? Well, even same-sex marriage is right with these people. Everything's right except opposition to them.
Except opposition to them.
Then you're an enemy of the revolution. With the Anabaptists, who were killing hundreds of thousands of people in the peasant revolts back in the 16th century. If you didn't follow them, this is the early radical Anabaptists. They weren't reformers; they were revolutionaries. They'd kill you. The French Revolution. If you questioned anything that they were saying, then you were an enemy of the revolution. You were to be killed. You see it in Soviet Union. You had the most dangerous thing was to be considered an enemy of the revolution, and you see the same thing now, that to be considered an enemy of the revolution, whether it's gay rights, whether it's global warming, whether it's any of the grandiose messianic plans of the state, you have to be silenced.
Tolerance only goes one way, and that's you don't disagree with anything they tell you is tolerant or acceptable. So if you have a standard, if you say this is wrong, and if we go down this road, we've gone down that road with affirmative action. And what I point out to people, it's not just that they want to have marriage between, okay, I now pronounce you man and husband. As soon as we say, okay, it's okay for 2 guys to get married, then 3 guys are going to want to get married. And they're going to say, wait a minute, why only couples? Why can't us as a trio enjoy the benefits of marriage? So it'll never end.
And to me, it's not so much that they're really trying to establish this parallel for themselves as primarily there's an animosity to the very institution of marriage, because it is a God-established institution, and you see people, they're given over to madness. I mean, and we see that when people are hostile to God, they end up doing all kinds of strange things. I mean, we've only got a minute left, but Romans 1, as they did not want to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind. And so you see child abuse, child pornography, you see homosexual marriage being put forward and things like this. It's a war against God and the created order, it seems. Colin, I'll have to have you back on. We've only got about 40 seconds left, so I've got to wrap up here, but great privilege to have you with us. I really appreciate you being with us this evening.
Great platform here.
Well, we are drawing to the end of another show. If you would like to see other good programming, Sunday mornings, 9 a.m., Terry Johnson of the Independent Presbyterian Church, my old home church, is being broadcast here on TV 20. If you'd like to worship with us, if you're looking for a church that takes God and His Word seriously, we invite you to worship with us Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. at 8630 West, 2700 South. Until next time, my name is Jason Wallace with Christ Presbyterian Church, and we wish you God's blessings. Good night.